Gentlemen, we are go to the sub the news now, you know. We are go to the we are called the overseas news. You understand me? I say China raises its retaliatory tariff on the US to 84% as it vows to fight to the end. People, the tariff war is normal, you know. And right now, the whole world, especially smaller markets, they within the middle of it. So we have to understand what is coming. Feel me idea? Don't give me a second there. Lord have mercy. Let me read this. Mm-mm. China again vowed to fight to the end. Wednesday, in an escalating trade war with the US, as it announced it would raise tariffs on America goods to 84% from Thursday, being also added an array of countermeasures after the US President Donald Trump raised the total tariff on imports from China to 104%. My God! Beijing said it was launching an additional suit against the US at the World Trade Organization and placed further restriction on American companies' trade with Chinese companies. If the US insists on further escalating its economy and trade restrictions, China has the firm will and abundant means to take necessary countermeasures and fight to the end. The Minister of Commerce wrote in a statement introducing its white paper on trade with the US. The government declined to say whether it would negotiate with the White House, as many other countries have started doing. On Friday, China announced a 34% tariff on all goods imported from the US, export controls on rare earth minerals, and slew of other measures in response to Trump Liberation Day tariff. Trump then added an additional 50% tariffs on goods from China, saying negotiations with them were terminated. Wednesday, newest measures include 11 American companies to a so-called unreliable entity list. My goodness, that would bar China's companies from selling them dual-use goods. Among the companies are Americans Photonics, Synexus, both of them whom work with American military. So far, China has not appeared interested in bargaining. If the US truly wants to resolve issue through dialogue and negotiation, it should adopt an attitude of equality, respect, and mutual benefit, said Minister of Foreign Affairs spokesman Lin Jian Wednesday. The paper says the US has not honored the promises it made in Phase 1 trade deal concluded during Trump's first term. As an example, it said that a US law that would ban TikTok unless it is sold by its Chinese parent company violates a promise that neither would pressure the other party to transfer technology to its own individual. Trump signed an order to keep TikTok running for another 75 days last week after a potential deal. After a potential deal to sell the app to America owners was put on ice. ByteDance representatives called the White House to indicate that China would no longer approve the deal until there could be negotiations about the trade and tariffs. People, this I eat up, you know. The paper also argued that taking into account trade in services and U.S. companies' domestic Chinese branches, economic exchange between the two countries is roughly in balance. It says that China had a trade in service deficit with the U.S. of 26.57 billion in 2023, which is composed of industries like insurance, banking, and accounting. Trump tariffs were designed to close trade deficits with foreign countries, but those were calculated only based on trades in physical, tangible goods. History and facts have proven that the United States' increase in tariffs will not solve its own problems, said the State of Chinese Commerce Ministry. Instead, it will trigger sharp fluctuation in financial markets, push up U.S. inflation pressure, weaken U.S. industrial base, and increase the risk of a U.S. economic recession. Woo! Which will ultimately only backfire on itself. Man, listen, China ain't playing, bro. China is not backing down. This is a battle between two, I would say, stubborn heads. Trump is stubborn, China is stubborn, and they're just gonna duke it out until somebody decides, say, yo, is either this is a draw. But in the middle of all of that, all of the smaller countries them are going to suffer in this trade war. I think it's an opportunity. I see the lining on the dark cloud. This is an opportunity for us as a Caribbean group of countries to unite and start to think about what we are going to produce in each island and have a constructive, trade kind of coalition between ourselves. So, say for instance, they have certain things they produce in that country, and we have certain things we produce over here. United as a Caribbean group of countries, we could stay within ourselves for the most part, where our economy is concerned, to the point of maybe, if we can get to maybe 60% of our trade within ourselves, so that would require countries to start to think about what we want to produce. What are the things that we're going to produce? And it can be a strategic level of production based off resources. And then, we trade within ourselves, because the big boys are thumping it out. And may I tell you, the sweat off of them eyebrow are going to drown the smaller country them. Just the sweat. Half of them duking it out, the sweat of these tariff wars are going to drown. So there's very, very hard times ahead, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know what the Prime Minister is talking about when he says, we need some clarity from the government of America. What do you mean they need clarity? Everybody know what 10% tariff mean, bro. Are you alone don't know? Are you alone need clarity? But we're moving right along. Let's listen to the minister, the Prime Minister, I believe, of Singapore. The Prime Minister. Listen to this.
My fellow Singaporeans, I've said before that the world is changing in ways that will disadvantage small open economies like Singapore. Some had previously questioned this assessment, but the recent Liberation Day announcement by the US leaves no room for doubt.
Class prefect, you're right.
It marks a seismic change in the global order. The era of rules-based globalization and free trade is over. We are entering a new phase, one that is more arbitrary, protectionist, and dangerous. For decades, the US was the bedrock for the free market economies of the world. It championed free trade and led efforts to build a multilateral trading system, anchored by clear rules and norms, where countries could achieve win-win benefits through trade. This WTO system brought unprecedented stability and prosperity to the world, and to the US itself. To be clear, the system is not perfect. Singapore and many others have long called for reform, to update the rules and to make the system better. But what the US is doing now is not reform. It is abandoning the entire system it had created. Its new approach of reciprocal tariffs, country by country, is a complete rejection of the WTO framework. The US has placed Singapore in the lowest base tier with a tariff of 10%. So the direct impact on us may be limited for now. But there are wider and more profound consequences. If other countries adopt the same approach as the US, abandoning the WTO and trading only on their own preferred terms country by country, it will spell trouble for all nations, especially small ones like Singapore. We risk being squeezed out, margin.
When you hear what the man said a while ago, this is Singapore, one of the more prepared nations financially for this situation right now. Listen what the man, may I play that again? Listen that what him say a while ago. Listen that.
For now. But there are wider and more profound consequences. If other countries adopt the same approach as the US, abandoning the WTO and trading only on their own preferred terms country by country, it will spell trouble for all nations, especially small ones like Singapore.
So you can imagine Jamaica when in a position of Singapore there. So the 10% tariff where Trump put out one way. Just imagine what we are going to go through. If them are brace, if Singapore are brace themselves, can you imagine what happened to Jamaica? People, a long time here, Rastaman them are talking. From me know myself, from me young, here Rastaman them say, grow your own food, have a local garden. You understand? Self-reliance. All of the mantra them are Rasta. If we wanna follow that, this wouldn't even bother we. This wouldn't even bother we. Because we don't live within myself. You see this this culturalized amalgamation of our integration, cultural integration is one of the things. There's a pros and cons to it basically. So we have lived in Jamaica thinking that we need certain things from other countries. Instead of us creating things for ourselves, we have become too dependable. So this dependency on this trade is going to be our Achilles heel in this trade war. You understand? We don't make a pencil, we don't make a pin, we don't make a underpants, we don't make a socks. Jamaica don't even have a water brand. Not even one brand water we export. Nothing. Amount of water and spring we have all over Jamaica. The government does not own, and this is not a PMP JLP thing. The government does not own not even a water company for Jamaica where we export water. None of them never do it. And if one of them did do it, somebody please educate me because I don't know about it. None of them never do it. You understand? You see, if the government then when I follow the principles them of Marcus Garvey, them things I want to hurt you right now. As a matter of fact, me take it a step further. You see, if them never, you see, if the CIA and CIA never infiltrate Jamaica, Jamaica would that be so far ahead right now, we wouldn't even worry about this. Because you see, Cuba and them place there, you see what them investing in? Them people are them greatest resource. Cuban export doctors, professionals, what the world need. In the pandemic, they were of the they were in a high demand, the highest of demand. Cuban doctors were in the highest of demand in when the world had the highest level of a healthcare crippling. You understand? So Cuba invests in their people. Them are the highest percent. But let's hear more.
We risk being squeezed out. Approach as the US, abandoning the WTO and trading only on their own preferred terms country by country, it will spell trouble for all nations, especially small ones like Singapore. We risk being squeezed out, marginalized, and left behind. We can also expect a strong global response to America's tariffs. Singapore has decided not to impose retaliatory tariffs. but other countries may not exercise the same restraint. The likelihood of a full-blown global trade war is growing. The impact of the higher tariffs plus the uncertainty of what other countries may do next will weigh heavily on the global economy. International trade and investments will suffer, and global growth will slow. Singapore will take a bigger hit than others because of our heavy reliance on trade. The last time the world experienced something like this was in the 1930s. Trade wars escalated into armed conflict and eventually the Second World War.
Want to hear that? Historically, this type of trade war results in a world war. The last time it was in the 1930s. So you see World War III thing, people. World War III thing kind of serious. Kind of serious. It kind of broke. When I call on nothing, what does I say? Prepare for the worst.
No one can say how the current situation will unfold in the coming months or years. But we must be clear-eyed about the dangers that are building up in the world. Global institutions are getting weaker. International norms are eroding. More and more countries will act based on narrow self-interest and use force or pressure to get their way. This is the harsh reality of our world today. We will stay vigilant. We will build up our capabilities. We will strengthen our network of partnerships with like-minded countries. We are more ready than many other countries with our reserves, our cohesion, and our resolve. But we must brace ourselves for more shocks to come. The global calm and stability we once knew will not return anytime soon.
You know, when the man said that, I remember the apostle, prophet, Jeffrey Shuttleworth last year, November, December, October, warning about this exact same thing we're happening right now. I believe the terminology he used is going to be, there's going to be a lot of industrial wars. It's going to be very topsy-turvy. Uncertainties. He used a lot of words that describe exactly what is happening right now. Let me just say that. So this was warned, and he was warning before that as well, but the warnings ramped up in October, November, and December about 2025. And here we are. Here we are. Yeah.
We cannot expect that the rules which protected small states will still hold. I'm sharing this with you so that we can all be mentally prepared, so that we will not be caught off guard. Let us not be lulled into complacency. The risks are real and the stakes are high. The road ahead will be harder. But if we stay resolute and united, Singapore will continue to hold its own in this troubled world.
Big up the Singapore Prime Minister for that. You understand? Let me know what you're thinking in the comment section about what I have to say and my arguments as well. A lot to think about, ladies and gentlemen. A lot to think about. Next.